She just wanted to buy a car. But the dealership staff decided she didn't even deserve their attention. What happened next taught everyone a powerful lesson. Watch until the end to find out who she really is. Subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments, what would you have done in her place? The sun was still high over downtown Chicago when Martha Brooks stepped off the bus, her worn leather sandals touching the pavement with deliberate slowness. The city buzzed around her, cars honking, businessmen shouting into phones, tourists snapping pictures. Yet, as she crossed the street and approached the gleaming glass structure of the prestigious Skyline Motors dealership, it was as though the world quieted. Martha paused outside for a moment, adjusting her grip on the wooden cane that steadied her aching knee. Her dress was clean but simple, a faded blue cotton with small buttons down the front. Her bag, weathered and sagging slightly, hung from her shoulder. Silver gray curls peeked out from beneath her sun hat. She took a breath, then pushed the door open. Inside, everything sparkled. Luxury sedans lined the floors like museum pieces, shining under perfectly positioned lights. Salesmen in crisp suits glided across the glossy tiles like dancers, their eyes scanning each new arrival like hawks evaluating prey. No one looked at Martha. She moved slowly through the showroom, pausing by a deep navy SUV parked on a small circular platform. It stood there like a beast ready to charge, but somehow elegant. Exactly the kind of car she'd dreamed of for years. For decades, she'd worked as a live-in nurse, caring for other people's children, holding the hands of the dying, cleaning wounds that no one else would. Every dollar she'd saved went toward rent, food, and helping her daughter finish college. But now, finally, she was ready to buy something for herself. Martha leaned forward, touching the chrome door handle of the SUV. The surface reflected her face, wrinkled and worn, but strong, her lips pressed into a quiet smile. "Ma'am," came a voice behind her, cold, clipped. She turned. A tall, young white man with slicked-back hair and a badge that read Ryan, Senior Consultant, stood a few feet away, arms crossed. "The section for pre-owned vehicles is around the back. This model's not really in that price range." Martha blinked. "I wasn't asking for directions," she replied gently. "I'm here to look at this one." He didn't move. "Well," he said, glancing down at her bag, "we usually ask that clients speak with a consultant before touching the vehicles. Do you have an appointment?" "No," she said. "I walked in, like everyone else." He shifted his weight. "Right," he muttered and turned on his heel, walking away. Martha stood still. Around her, laughter echoed. Two men in suits were shaking hands near the espresso machine, being offered bottled water by another staff member. A white couple was escorted to a seating area with a plush leather couch and sparkling glass table. She looked back at the SUV. Was it the way she looked? Her skin? Her age? The clothes? She walked quietly past another vehicle and approached a small reception desk. A younger man behind it, likely no older than 20, looked up but didn't say anything. His eyes flicked down to her bag again, and he returned to tapping on his keyboard. Martha cleared her throat. "Excuse me, I'd like to speak with someone about a purchase." He didn't look up. "Someone will be with you when they're available." She waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Every time someone walked in wearing a Rolex or designer shoes, a consultant appeared out of nowhere. But no one came to her. She finally stepped away from the desk and found a bench in the corner. Her knees ached. She sat carefully, taking a worn piece of paper from her purse, a folded checklist she'd written weeks ago. At the top, Things I will do before I turn 75. The third bullet point, buy myself a brand new car, not used, not discounted, mine. She ran a finger along the line. A faint smile touched her lips, but it quickly faded. A sudden burst of laughter made her look up. A white man in a tailored navy suit walked into the showroom. Instantly, 3 salesmen surrounded him. Bottled water appeared, a cappuccino. Someone offered to valet his car. Martha watched in silence. The contrast was unbearable. One of the salesmen who had ignored her earlier leaned over and whispered something to a colleague, nodding in her direction. They both chuckled, then moved to shake hands with the new arrival. Martha felt a heaviness in her chest, a quiet kind of anger, not hot or fiery, cold and sharp like a knife pressed gently to skin. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed a message. You were right. They didn't even ask what I wanted. The response came seconds later. Stay where you are. I'm on my way. Martha folded the phone shut and returned it to her bag. She didn't move from the bench. She sat tall, dignified, unmoving. She'd been invisible all her life, on buses and grocery stores and waiting rooms and elevators. She had learned to be polite, to be small, to not take up space. But today she had walked in ready to be seen. And now she would wait, not for their permission, but for justice to walk through the door. Martha remained seated on the narrow bench, her cane resting against the polished wall beside her, her eyes steady and calm as the noise of the showroom flowed around her like a current. Customers came and went. Laughter, handshakes, idle small talk, the sounds of money moving, of deals being made, but none of it touched her. No one offered her a bottle of water. No one asked if she needed help. She was furniture, a shadow. Then, unexpectedly, a voice cut through the noise. Young, warm, and curious. Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need anything? Martha looked up. A young man stood before her wearing a navy jumpsuit with grease stains on the sleeves. His name tag read Elijah, parking assistant. He couldn't have been older than 21. His skin was deep brown, his posture respectful but casual. I saw you sitting here a while, Elijah continued. Figured maybe nobody's helped you yet. Martha allowed herself a faint smile. That's kind of you. No, they haven't. He nodded slowly, glancing over his shoulder at the showroom floor. They're busy watching credit scores walk through the door, he said quietly, then looked back at her. But I got a few minutes. You want me to bring you water or something? They got cucumber water in the back. Tastes funny, but it's cold. Martha chuckled. Cold sounds perfect. Elijah disappeared and returned within a minute with a small cup, condensation beading on the outside. She took it with a grateful nod. You looking at that SUV, right? He asked, gesturing discreetly toward the Navy vehicle she had admired earlier. That thing's a beast. Heated seats, cameras on all sides, and you can link your phone up to it. My cousin rented one when he got married. Smoothest ride I ever felt. Martha's eyes lit up. I've wanted a car like that for a long time. You got good taste, miss. Before Martha could respond, a voice cracked across the floor like a whip. Elijah! It was one of the floor managers, a thin white man in a too-tight suit and an earpiece. Elijah turned his head. Get back to the lot. You're not here to chit-chat. You got 3 vehicles still unparked. Elijah's smile faded slightly. Yes, sir. He looked at Martha and whispered, You let me know if you need anything, okay? Then he stepped away and disappeared through a side door. Martha's smile lingered even after he was gone. It was brief, but it was something. It was respect. She turned back to the showroom floor. Her brief moment of peace was shattered by a loud, boisterous greeting as another customer entered. He was white, tall, middle-aged, with slicked-back hair and a sharp black suit that screamed wealth, the kind of man who walked like he owned every room he entered. Immediately, the energy shifted. 3 employees swooped in like hawks, offering him coffee, a chair, a brochure, and even a private viewing suite. The receptionist, who hadn't even looked at Martha earlier now, smiled like a pageant contestant. "Welcome back, Mr. Delacroix." Martha folded her arms. She watched it all with tight lips and an emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Bitterness. The glass between her and the world gleamed like a boundary she would never be allowed to cross. She slowly unfolded her paper again, her before 75 list. Her hand hovered over the 3rd bullet point. Buy myself a brand new car, not used, not discounted. Mine. She added something beneath it. Without being humiliated. The sound of footsteps neared. For a moment, she hoped someone had finally come for her, but no. 2 salesmen passed right by her, laughing. One said, "Did you see her? Looks like she walked in off the street." The other snorted. "She's probably waiting for a ride. Ain't nobody buying a car dressed like that." They didn't even glance at her. Martha clenched her jaw, folded the paper, and tucked it back into her purse. Her fingers hovered over her phone again. "You sure you're coming? It's ugly here." The reply came instantly. "I'm already outside. Give me 1 minute." Martha sat up straighter. Through the tinted glass, a sleek black car pulled up near the main entrance. The door opened, and a pair of designer heels hit the pavement. Then came the crisp, confident stride of a woman in a charcoal gray blazer, sharp slacks, and a silk blouse. Her hair was tied back, and in one hand she carried a leather portfolio. Martha smiled without showing teeth. The front doors of the showroom parted with a hiss. Heads turned. Salespeople glanced over, some instantly straightening their posture. One tried to step forward, but the woman waved a hand, not dismissively, but with precision. She walked with purpose toward the bench in the corner, toward Martha. "Mom," the woman said softly, embracing her. A few mouths opened, a few eyes widened. One of the senior consultants blinked, recognizing her face, from emails, company newsletters, maybe even internal memos. "Temmie," he began. The woman turned her head sharply. "Not now," she said. "Not yet." Martha stood slowly, leaning on her cane. She looked around the room. Eyes were on her now, but for the wrong reasons. She turned to her daughter. "Let's not cause a scene," she said, though her voice trembled. Tamika smiled, calm, focused. "Oh, I'm not here to cause a scene, Mama." She stepped forward. "I'm here to conduct an internal audit." Every person in the showroom froze. And for the first time since Martha walked in, the room was quiet, not from indifference, but from fear. The silence that followed Tamika's words was deafening. Every consultant, every assistant, every polished shoe on the tile floor seemed frozen in place. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the ever-charming Mr. Delacroix glanced uneasily from one woman to the other, his posture faltering as if he had just walked into a room mid-explosion. Tamika didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She stood tall, poised in the center of the showroom, commanding attention not with authority forced, but with authority earned. Her dark eyes scanned the room like a surgeon preparing to make the first cut. Her mother stood beside her, hand resting calmly on her cane, her gaze forward. The silence was broken by the stammering voice of the floor manager. "Miss Brooks, we weren't expecting, we didn't. No one informed us of your visit today." "That's the point," Tamika said coolly. This wasn't a visit. It was an observation. She turned and gestured gently toward Martha. My mother arrived here more than 45 minutes ago. She was ignored. She was belittled. She was redirected to used vehicles without a single question about her intentions. No one asked her name. No one asked her purpose. Not a single employee, except one parking assistant, treated her like she mattered. Another wave of stunned silence. A few staff members shifted uncomfortably, but none dared speak. Tamika let the weight of her words sink in. "Let me ask you something," she continued. "If my mother had been white, if she had been wearing pearls and designer shoes instead of orthopedic sandals and a cotton dress, would she have been ignored?" No one answered. She didn't need them to. "I'm not here today as your executive director. I'm here as a customer's daughter. And what I saw was racism, ageism, and elitism, all served with a smile." The receptionist, the same one who had stared through Martha like she didn't exist, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Miss Brooks, one of the senior consultants, finally tried to speak, stepping forward with hands slightly raised. "You have to understand, we didn't know who she was. If we had, Tamika turned sharply. "And that, right there, is your problem." The man stopped mid-step. "You're not supposed to treat people with respect because of who they are," she said, her voice gaining edge. "You're supposed to treat them with respect because of what they are. Human beings. Clients. People walking into a business that claims to value customer experience." A nervous laugh escaped someone's throat. Tamika's head snapped in their direction. It died instantly. She inhaled slowly and let the silence breathe again. Then she opened her leather folder. "This is a list of every employee scheduled during this shift," she said, holding it up. "This morning, I asked our HR department to email me an updated roster. I'll be conducting interviews with each of you, privately." The floor manager cleared his throat again. "Miss Brooks, we were following protocol. There are certain standards we use when we assess potential buyers." "Such as?" she asked. "Well, we look at presentation, how someone carries themselves, how likely they are to—" "To what?" she interrupted. "To afford a vehicle that costs less than the monthly bonuses most of you earn for commission." The man's jaw clenched. He said nothing. Tamika turned her attention back to the room. "I want everyone to understand this. The brand we've built, the one my name is now attached to, it's not just about cars, it's about people. And if we fail to treat all people with dignity, then we failed as a business." Martha, standing beside her, placed a hand gently on her daughter's arm. Her voice was quiet. "You've made your point, baby." But Tamika shook her head once. "No, Mama, not yet." She looked to the young man who had brought Martha the water, Elijah, the parking assistant, who stood near the entrance, his face pale with uncertainty. "Elijah," she called. He straightened immediately. "Yes, ma'am." "I want you to meet me in my office tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. sharp. I'm authorizing you for an internal transfer." His mouth opened in shock. "Ma'am?" "You showed compassion, integrity, and initiative. Qualities this place desperately needs more of. You'll start shadowing the sales team next week. Full pay raise included." Elijah stood frozen, as if he couldn't trust what he'd just heard. But Martha turned to him and smiled. "You earned that, young man," she said softly. Tamika turned back to the crowd. "As for the rest of you, I'll be reviewing your conduct reports personally. Those of you who laughed, who whispered, who judged." She tapped her folder. "If your names are on this list and your actions match what I saw, don't come in tomorrow. Panic flickered in a few eyes, but no one dared protest. She glanced down at her watch. "My mother will now be shown to the vehicle of her choosing," she said, "by someone who knows how to do their job, kindly." There was a long pause before anyone moved. Finally, a senior consultant, one who hadn't yet embarrassed himself, stepped forward. "Miss Brooks, may I assist?" Tamika didn't look at him. She looked at her mother. Martha nodded. "I think that would be fine." The two women turned together. As they walked across the showroom, heads bowed out of their path. Whispers erupted only once they had passed. And as the Navy SUV's doors were opened for her, Martha stopped for a moment and looked back. It wasn't pride that filled her eyes. It was justice. And for the first time all day, she truly felt seen. The Navy SUV glistened under the showroom lights as if it, too, had been waiting for Martha all this time. Its polished surface reflected her calm, dignified expression as she approached. The senior consultant, who now stood beside her, moved with rigid, overly rehearsed politeness, his every motion careful, deferential, as if trying to erase the earlier silence that had screamed louder than words. Martha took one slow step forward and ran her hand gently along the car's hood. She felt its strength, its warmth from the lights, the weight of the moment pressing softly into her palm. For a second, she closed her eyes. "You have excellent taste," the consultant said quietly, nervously. "This model is our most reliable. Safe, comfortable, smooth ride." Martha said nothing. She opened the door and sat down behind the wheel. The leather embraced her like it had been waiting, too. Tamika stood nearby, arms crossed, watching, but she wasn't smiling. Her expression was unreadable, cold but proud, focused but somehow still full of fire. Martha adjusted the mirrors, looked through the windshield, and then reached into her purse. From it, she pulled out the folded paper, the list she had carried with her for years, and opened it across the steering wheel. "Things I will do before I turn 75. She checked the third line. "Buy myself a brand new car, not used, not discounted, mine." And under it, the line she had added just hours ago, "without being humiliated." She took out a pen, paused for a moment, and then placed a firm check mark next to both lines. Across the room, Elijah watched her from the edge of the entrance with wide eyes. He wasn't smiling. He looked stunned, like someone witnessing a moment he didn't yet fully understand. But he stood taller now, a little straighter. The air around him had changed. Tamika turned to him and nodded once. "Don't be late tomorrow," she said. "I won't, ma'am," Elijah replied, his voice clear. She turned back to her mother. "You ready to go, Mama?" Martha took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. "I've been ready for years." The senior consultant handed over the key fob with both hands, as if delivering a crown. She took it silently and pressed the button. The engine came to life, smooth, purring, dignified. Martha drove forward slowly, guided by the consultant to the glass entrance. The wide automatic doors slid open, letting in the afternoon light. The city buzzed outside as it had earlier, unchanged, but something inside Martha had shifted. As she eased the car out of the showroom and onto the driveway, employees parted like a wave on both sides, watching in silence. No one clapped, no one spoke, no one dared. Halfway down the driveway, she stopped. From her side window, she looked back at the building. A tall glass wall bore the dealership slogan, etched in silver foil across its surface. Excellence in every experience. For Martha, those words had meant nothing when she first walked in. They were a decoration, hollow. But now, after everything that had happened, After standing still while the world tried to erase her, they carried a weight she could finally reclaim. She turned to her daughter. "You know they're going to talk about this for a long time, right?" "Good," Tamika said. "Let them. Some of them are scared of you now." Tamika smirked faintly. "Then maybe they'll learn something." Martha eased her foot onto the accelerator and the SUV rolled forward onto the street. The city unfolded ahead of them. Streets lined with strangers who didn't know her name. Sidewalks where she had once stood invisible. But not today. Today she had taken up space. Today she had been seen. And today Justice hadn't worn a robe. It had walked in on heels and carried her mother's name. As they pulled away from the dealership, Martha glanced into the rearview mirror one last time. Behind the glass, someone was already removing one of the signs. An hour later, a new one would take its place. Tall, bold, and etched in large black letters, "Respect isn't earned by appearance. It's owed to everyone." That message wasn't a slogan. It was policy. Dear viewers, what would you have done in Martha's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe. There's more where this came from. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.